Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'm Congressman Mike Levin, and I proudly represent the 49th Congressional District, which includes here in beautiful Oceanside. I'm here to sound the alarm about Elon Musk's attempt to dismantle the Social Security Administration and potentially disrupt and delay benefits for the 70 million Americans across the country who rely on Social Security. Earlier this week, Musk's DOGE, which I think really stands for Destruction of Government by Elon, posted on its website that the Carlsbad Social Security office had been closed or was in the process of being closed. But here's the thing, there is no public-facing Carlsbad Social Security office. There's one across the freeway here in Oceanside. So my office reached out immediately to the Social Security Administration to get clarity about what was going on. But unlike in the past, we got this time an unhelpful statement that gave no certainty if the Oceanside office would be safe, and neither confirmed nor denied any office closures. Then yesterday, Thursday, we saw news that DOGE told the Social Security Administration to cut its staff by as much as half and to prepare to start closing offices all across the country. We also confirmed yesterday late afternoon, that there is indeed a non-public facing Social Security office. It's the Area Director's Office in Carlsbad. And that's something that we had to go find out for ourselves. The Social Security Administration never shared that. That office helps to oversee the 8 regional Social Security offices throughout San Diego County, which range from downtown to Oceanside to Chula Vista, San Marcos, and others. And you should note that the 8 offices for a population of 3.3 million, some have said isn't enough. And often there are wait times, and I think it's clear every single one of these offices is absolutely critical to the people who rely on them. So I would say we can't afford to lose a single one of these 8 regional offices, certainly including the one in Oceanside that I was just at. When they close an office, it doesn't just mean worse service or longer lines. It means some people will have no access at all to the help that they need. That's why today I'm calling on the Social Security Administration and DOGE to publicly commit to keeping every one of these offices open. San Diego seniors, veterans, and working families deserve nothing less. And my broader message to Elon Musk and DOGE is this: hands off Social Security. In our district alone, there are over 137,000 Social Security recipients, which include almost 113,000 retirees, 7,108 disabled workers, and 4,631 children. These constituents, you'll be hearing from a few, are hardworking Americans who paid into Social Security and earned their benefits. These are not handouts, and please don't call them entitlements. These are earned benefits. Our constituents rely on Social Security to pay the rent, put food on the table, buy medicine, and much more. So what happens if Elon Musk gets his way and the Social Security Administration lays off up to half its workforce and closes offices across the country? Wait times will skyrocket. Offices will close. Phones won't get answered. It already can take months to process claims and appeals, and with fewer workers, that could stretch into years. Let me say also, Social Security has around 60,000 workers. Over half work in the 1,200 field offices. There's no way to cut half of the Social Security workforce without doing tremendous harm to the field offices all around the country. It simply doesn't work. Seniors who need help applying for benefits or fixing mistakes will be left stranded if these field offices close. Many seniors do not have reliable internet or know how to use the online system. Errors will increase. Payments will be further delayed. Some seniors could go months without the money they need to pay rent, buy groceries, or get medicine. And those who would be hit the hardest are the most vulnerable, including those with no other income or those with disabilities. The Social Security system is already stretched thin. We ought to be having a bipartisan conversation in Washington, D.C. about how to protect and strengthen it for future generations. This is the opposite. Mass layoffs, mass closures could break Social Security, period. And that might be the idea, to break it from the inside. It's the greatest attack on Social Security since the creation of Social Security in 1935. And let me say something else. I'm all for efficiency. I'm all for getting rid of waste, getting rid of fraud and abuse. I don't like bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy. But this is something very different. And make no mistake, it's unconstitutional. Only Congress, which has the constitutional power of the purse under Article 1, can cut funding for federal agencies or impose the massive cuts or closures that DOGE is recommending and already implementing across the federal government. And remember, DOGE is run by an unelected billionaire, the wealthiest person in the world, with no one watching the store. You saw what President Trump said in that cabinet meeting, all those cabinet officers. Elon Musk spoke, and then President Trump looked around and said, no one has a problem with this, right? Because if you do, that's going to be a problem with President Trump. Musk and his minions want to gut Social Security from within. They want to gut the federal government from within. And tens of millions of Americans will suffer as a result. Let me close with this. In January, a career employee at the Social Security Administration, mid-level, largely unknown employee named Leland Dudek, was caught sharing unauthorized data with Elon Musk's team at DOGE. This is before the swearing in of Trump. Senior officials in the last weeks of the Biden administration were so alarmed that they put Leland Dudek on leave and launched an investigation that he may have violated privacy and tax laws. And here's the stuff you can't make up. President Trump just made him the acting director of Social Security. He's now in charge of Social Security, working formally with Musk and DOGE on these cuts. You heard that right. The person who was investigated for sharing sensitive data with Musk and DOGE is now running the Social Security Administration. It's outrageous. Thank you. Is that going to stay up? Thank you. He does it all. So I want you to know this. I'm going to fight back with everything I have, every single day. Legislatively, procedurally, we're going to support litigation. We're going to mobilize and we're going to communicate. And I will appeal to anyone, Republican, Democrat, Independent, to protect and strengthen this vital program for generations to come, not to gut it from within. And now I'll turn it to Susan Dixon.
Thank you, and thank you, Congressman. As he said, my name is Susie Dixon. 10 years ago, I retired from public school teaching in Capistrano Unified after teaching 35 years. And I'm now currently the president of the California Retired Teachers Association. I'm honored to stand before you and speak about this critical issue and as a constituent of Congressman Mike Levin. I've been a champion for retirees and advocating for their earned Social Security benefit for years. My journey became as an advocate for Social Security. It didn't happen overnight. It came after years of seeing how firsthand these benefits are critical to our elderly. I became passionate about fighting for Social Security when I moved into the CalRTA leadership 9 years ago. I was instantly moved and constantly emailed, phone calls, and in-person requests from members who were struggling to make ends meet and meet their financial needs in their retiree golden years. Some of these were due to our members due to insufficient Social Security benefits. Many that contacted me over the years have had to sell their homes to make a decision, a lifelong home that was paid for, to be able to afford the incurring cost of health care and just to be able to survive in their long-term years. I really remember so many of those stories, but one that hurt so deeply was an 85-year-old member 3 years into my leadership who contacted me and begged me to help her be able to make a decision. Her Social Security benefits were initially unexpectedly cut. Unable to afford basic necessities at 85 years old, food, health care, housing, she had to make a very critical decision and move into assisted living that was subsidized. And sadly, just a few months later, died. Again, dying without dignity of retirement is unacceptable in this country. That's what Social Security was meant for, retirement benefits. It's not a handout, as the congressman said. It's a fundamental right. These are earned benefits by our workers who have paid in for years. They are not paying in without having a promise that they will receive those benefits once they receive and reach that retirement age. But as you are hearing, these benefits and the Social Security Administration is under a critical attack. These will not happen if we all join together and make it known that this is unacceptable. Currently, Social Security aides, or the agents, are working with less members than, or members that are there who are in the last 50 years. They've been understaffed the last 20 years. And he's talking about cutting more agents, more field offices. As the congressman said, and many of our members, they are not tech savvy. They need to be able to go in person, talk to someone to make sure that their benefits are correct. They are not able to do that on an online format. Proposals to these cuts, closing the field offices, will be devastating for our members and for all elderly in Social Security. It will push more of our seniors into poverty. And what happens when they're in poverty? Just as my 85-year-old member, she had to go on federal subsidies. That's more costly. That is not what she paid in, or her spouse, in to earn benefits. It's not meant that we take this away from meeting basic needs. As I said earlier, I became an advocate and I became a champion because I do believe a promise made must be kept. And it's time for all of our leaders to uphold that promise. It's important that we stand together on both sides of the aisle and we make sure our elected officials know this is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Susie. Now we have another Susie and her husband Dennis.
Hello, am I calling? Okay, thank you. Hello, it's so nice to be here and be invited and be a part of this situation. My husband and Dennis and I are pleased this morning to be with all of you and Congress Levin and his staff that were able to straighten out a 6-month problem with Social Security and Medicare Part B for me in a short time. Thank you, Congress. I'll let my husband tell you, or I can't believe it story. Okay, thank you.
My name is Dennis Marnick, and my wife and I are retired teachers. She taught at Miracosta College here and UCSD. I taught at Palomar and Cal State San Marcos. We're good with paperwork. Okay, we know how to submit papers, do the forms, and we did all the way through. So we were surprised to get a notice from the Palomar Benefits Office, who handles our insurance, that Susie was dropped from Medicare Part B. and we had no reason for it. There was no notice given. And in fact, we received notification from Social Security office that we would be receiving a refund of overpayments. So we started the process, which was quite laborious and quite long, to get reinstated. Susie applied immediately to the Social Security office upon calling the general number that they give us. And we were told that she had to fill out Form SSA 795, which we did immediately. Well, a month later, we asked for a progress report by calling that number, and they said, it's in the processing unit. Well, we decided to go to our local office here in Oceanside, and we spoke to an individual there. They were so helpful, so professional, and so hardworking. You go into that office, and you can't believe the number of people that they handle. They do good work. They are not anything like what the Trump administration paints public workers to be. These are hardworking individuals who were very polite and tried to guide us through the process. We were told that her claim, since it was important, she was undergoing surgery, had one surgery, and was going to have another, that would be expedited, and they would speed up the process to have her reinstated. A month later, I checked back to see how it was going, and we were told it was in the processing unit being processed. A month later, we went back to the Social Security office, and were told they did not know what was going on, but that the in-processing unit had been understaffed because of cutbacks. And because of the cutbacks, the process was taking longer. After 5 months and several visits to the local office and many communications by phone, I called Mike Levin's office. We returned on to Colton Ruffin, his aide, who responded to my request the next day. We really appreciate your very efficient office, Mike, and it was really helpful. The next step was to submit some additional information to Colton so that he could follow through with the process. Within 4 weeks, Susie was reinstated to Medicare Part B. Now, there were many more meetings and many more phone calls. It's very frustrating, and it does have an emotional effect on you to have to go through this process, especially when medical procedures are involved that have to be delayed. They finally received the notice that Susie was reinstated, but in the meantime, Susie had to deal with bills every month for procedures from medical facilities that were not paid. Susie was dropped from our Anthem Blue Cross. Susie was dropped from Navitas prescription coverage. We had to pay $1,875 to my college benefits office for penalties assessed by Anthem Blue Cross. And Susie canceled appointments with her cardiologist, canceled appointments with her ophthalmologist, who was treating for macular degeneration. We can only thank Mike Levin's office for helping us go through this process. We both teach business and economics. There's no reason for the proposed changes with a chainsaw to eliminate government employees. There are times when government is more efficient than the private sector. If you want to improve the process and save money, check into the government contractors like Elon Musk, who received $38 billion in contracts over the last years, and those are the areas that have the greatest problems. We were notified during our process that a company named Noridian sent us a letter saying because of their difficulties processing that we would be delayed as much as 4 months in getting information on what was going to happen. It's government contracting that could stand a severe look at, not the government agencies that work so hard and use such professional people. Again, Mike, I really thank you for your help in addressing the situation. Susie's back to the doctor.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank my team for doing that great work. Colton's not here to hear all these wonderful things about him. You're going to have to convey this to Colton, but I want to thank all of you on my team because we deal with Social Security casework all the time, and I can tell you that they will tell you that our local Social Security offices are doing a great job and are very collaborative and service-oriented. The other thing I'll mention is that about a third of the federal workforce are veterans. So about 5,000 veterans in the federal workforce here in our district alone, out of the roughly 15,000 federal employees. And if you talk about caring for veterans, for 6 years I was the lead Democrat on the subcommittee that was in charge of veteran employment and workforce development. And we did everything we could to try to get veterans into federal workforce jobs. My experience was our veteran community want to find new ways to serve. When you leave military service, you want to keep serving. And the federal workforce is a great way to do that. So I was original co-sponsor of a bill we just dropped yesterday, or 2 days ago, to reverse the firings of all of the veterans who were fired without cause. Many were what are known as probationary. You probably heard about this. And when you hear probationary, you might think it's a new employee or maybe somebody that got in trouble, but that's not the case at all. In many cases, it's somebody who just got promoted. I just spoke with a 10-year Air Force vet who then wound up going to work for the CISA, the cybersecurity, Federal Cybersecurity Administration, and he got excellent performance reviews, and he was there for over a decade as well. He just got promoted to supervisor, and they just let him go because he was probationary. There are stories like this all across the country. We're going to do what we can to highlight more of those stories in the coming weeks through whatever means we can. And with that, I'd be happy to take some questions.
Congressman
Hi,
Levin.
Tanya.
Hi. So can you confirm that there is indeed a Carlsbad Social Security office, maybe not a field office, but some sort of headquarter, an address, how many staff members are there maybe, and why this wasn't public knowledge, and just more details about that specific location?
It used to be, Tanya, that you could call the Legislative Affairs Liaison for the Social Security Administration, or really for any agency of the federal government, and they would be straight with you and tell you what was happening. And that clearly did not happen when our office reached out because they gave us, I think I shared with you the statement that they gave us. So we had to dig around and talk to people that have previously worked at the Social Security Administration who told us that there is in fact an area director's office. It's a private, closed door office. We're trying to dig into how many people work in that office, but we know that the rent, based on the DOJ website, is $118,000 a year, and that they're definitely going to try to close that. But subsequent to that, I think all the confusion around that. When you and I talked the other day, if you remember, I said, well, just give it a day or two, right? And there'll be a lot more bad things happening with regard to Social Security workforce and offices. And we ran into the same thing last week with the Postal Service, I think I mentioned to you. So, a day later, the Washington Post and now the AP and New York Times, everybody else, reporting on, of the 60,000 or so people that work at SSA, anywhere between 7,000 is the low end, but the actual directive was up to half. So between 7,000 and 30,000. What I have learned talking to people that, know a thing or two about Social Security, the inner workings of it, is that 50 to 60% of that 60,000 workforce work in the field offices. And you cannot have even a cut of 7,000 without doing tremendous harm either to the back office or to the customer-facing offices, of which there are 1,200. So in San Diego, we have 8 public-facing offices. I think you visited 2 the other day. And I don't know the answer of how many are going to be threatened. the public reporting and the memo that we saw is that all the agencies have to submit a plan by March 13th of the scale and scope of the cuts. And in terms of Social Security, GSA is expected that will be up to half of the workforce, and prepare for the closures of field offices, is what their own memo says. It has been publicly reported across many outlets. Does it make sense? So I wish we could tell you, they're going to close this one, this one, this one. We don't know. Is it absolutely possible that they will close multiple of the 8 offices in San Diego? Well, just the math dictates that that would have to be the case. If they, my hope in coming out and addressing this and speaking with you all, and that my colleagues do this across the country, they say, do not do this, because what we've seen, and this is very interesting, we know, for example, the National Nuclear Safety Administration. We know the story about how people were manning the nuclear weapons and they got fired, and then people realized what a mistake that was at DOJ. They tried to hire them back, but too late, because they didn't even have the contact information for some of these people. What happened is you had Republican senators and Republican House members saying, hold up, don't fire that person or that person. I know that person, or I work with that person. Hire him back. So then they'll call or contact the Office of Legislative Affairs at the White House and try to get these people hired again. My hope is that Social Security offices all across the country, that people will stand up and speak out. Do not close these field offices. Do not gut the Social Security Administration's workforce. And that my Republican colleagues will get the memo and push back against the administration. And maybe in a month, when they submit their plan, it's not completely catastrophic, right? If they do half the workforce, it's completely catastrophic. That is literally trying to gut this program from within in a way that has never happened in 90 years.
This Carlsbad office in question, do you think it's possible? It just became public knowledge about this specific location. Is it one that you think we can maybe afford to lose without?
I don't know enough about what they do, but that's what our team is going to be doing. And we're going to have to, I told my team, when Biden was president and the agencies tell you what's happening, trust but verify. Unfortunately, now it seems we can't trust what they're saying, and so we're going to have to, sorry to give you more work to do, folks, but we're going to have to go find out ourselves what's happening on the ground. Yes, sir.
Aside from staffing cuts and possible field office closures, are you expecting any actual cuts to actual benefits?
All we know is what the vast majority of Republican members have been talking about, including those who are in leadership, and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, which is they want to raise the retirement age and they want to cut benefits. It is their belief that the only way that you keep Social Security solvent is to have these sort of draconian cuts. I don't believe that's the case. Since I've been in Congress, I've supported something called the Social Security 2100 Act, which says if you just have people making $400,000 a year or more pay their fair share into the payroll tax system. In other words, today, if you make up to around $172,000, I think, you pay into the payroll tax system, and then you don't pay above that. So if you just started paying again at $400,000 and above in earned income, we could close the gap, the funding gap, keep Social Security solvent for the rest of the century, and you'd have money to increase benefits with a real cost of living adjustment. And look, thank you. I hope that some decent Republican members, we only need 3, they only have a majority of 3, will work with us on something that could actually keep Social Security solvent, as opposed to what Elon Musk seems to want to do, which is to literally gut it from within in a way that has not occurred in 90 years. Yes, sir.
Sir, are there people that are receiving Social Security checks that they're not supposed to? And there are checks that I heard that they're going to people over 100 years old.
Both of those are demonstrably false claims. And if you go, we can send you, my team can send you links to PolitiFact or any of the actual objective fact-checking organizations. Both of those claims are flat untrue, as are most of the claims being made by Elon Musk and DOJ. Thank you. Anybody else? Nope.
There's no more.
Go ahead, ma'am. Thank you. Oh my God. Why don't we help? Okay, please, look, you have 3 of them coming over to help you. What was your name? Rosalind. If you can imagine how much worse it would be if half the staff was cut. Think of that. So you waited nine hours on the phone, and then now you have to wait 2 months. So I asked people who used to work in Social Security Administration, what would it mean to cut half the staff? And the answer is people could have to wait for years if they ever get their benefits at all. Offices closing, people not having internet access, it would be a disaster, That's why we're trying to speak out. Maybe we can prevent the worst of it if anyone's listening. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you very much.